Hello Year 3, welcome to your next English lesson. Today is going to be our comprehension lesson, but as we finished our book The Treehouse, we're going to move on to talking about inference and making inferences in a text. But before we do that, I've actually written 5 words onto the board, 5 really interesting describing words, and I would like you to try to put these words into sentences. You haven't got to write your sentences down, you may just want to think of them, but see if you can put these 5 words into sentences. Let me just read them for you. Ancient, fierce, selfish, sparkling, confident. You may even be able to put 2 of the words into the same sentence if you can. So pause the video and see if you can put any of these words into sentences, and I will do the same. The sentence I came up with, Year 3, was the fierce tiger leapt into the sparkling water. I'm sure you came up with lots of interesting ideas as well. Just going to move the board ever so slightly closer. So today, and over the next couple of weeks, we're going to be talking about inference. This is something we have done briefly in school together as well. When you make an inference, you're making a clever guess. You're using the information and the clues in the text, in the story, to answer a question. When we're answering an inference question, we can't just copy sentences straight out of the story. We're almost reading between the lines a little bit, using our own knowledge and the information in the story to think of an answer. I've done a couple of examples on the board that we can do together just quickly. Let me just read the first one. Max was asleep on the floor. Then the doorbell rang. Max ran to the door and jumped up. So the question I've written on the board is, who is Max and why do you think this? So have a look at that sentence or those sentences and try to think, who is Max? It doesn't tell me who Max is in those sentences. So that's why it's an inference question. We have to use our own knowledge and have a clever guess to see if we can work out who Max is. Let me just read it one more time. Max was asleep on the floor. Then the doorbell rang. Max ran to the door and jumped up. So who is Max and why do you think this? Pause the video for a minute and see if you can decide who you think Max is and tell me why you think Max is that thing. Welcome back, Year 3. If you did pause the video, I'm sure lots of you came up with this answer. I think Max is a dog in this story. And the reason I think this, because you have to give a reason, you have to say why, is because he was sleeping on the floor. Often, dogs or animals may sleep on the floor. And he ran to the door when the doorbell rang and he jumped up. All things that a dog might do. But again, it didn't tell us that Max was a dog, but we've used our own knowledge and the clues in the story to come up with that answer. Let's have a look at the next one. James stamped upstairs. He slammed his door behind him. So, how is James feeling and why do you think this? Let me read it one more time. James stamped upstairs. He slammed his door behind him. How is James feeling and why do you think this? Again, in those sentences, in the text, it doesn't actually tell us how James is feeling. We have to use the clues in the text to come up with an answer. We have to use our own knowledge, read between the lines a little bit, use those clues, see if we can work out how James is feeling and say why. So pause the video for a minute and see if you can say how you think James is feeling and say why you think that. Welcome back, Year 3. If you did pause the video, I think James was quite angry. And the reason I think James was angry is because it says he stamped upstairs. He didn't tiptoe upstairs or walk upstairs. He stamped upstairs. And also it says he slammed his door. He didn't gently close his door or push his door. He slammed his door. Which those things, those clues, made me think he was probably quite angry. Well done if you came up with any of those answers, Year 3. So today, we're going to be reading a text, and again, you're going to be answering the 8 inference questions. There are 5 questions and there are 3 extension questions if you have time. And again, most of these questions need you to read between the lines a little bit, use the clues in the text to come up with an answer. Most of you, I think, will be able to read this text by yourselves, but I am going to read it at the end of this video, just for those people that would like to hear me read the text first. So answer the first 5 questions and the next 3 questions if you have time. And if you have anything time left at the end, you can also read to somebody at home if you can, and keep writing in your reading record. Lots of people have been great at continuing to use their reading record whilst being at home. So do please read to someone a couple of times a week and keep writing in your reading record. I'll now read the text for people that would like to hear me read it. A fun day out. Let's look at the lions first, said Jack excitedly. He grabbed Sarah and they ran to the lion's cage. A moment later, Mum and Dad came. Keep still, said Mum. Say cheese, said Dad, happily. Flash. That looks like a good one, he said joyfully. After a while, the family decided to move on. They went into a reptile house where there were lots of colourful birds flying around and strange creatures in tanks. Sarah crept over to a huge glass tank. She couldn't see anything in there, but little did she know there was a huge snake camouflaged in with the green leaves. Suddenly, Sarah jumped back and ran over to give her mum a hug. Jack, who was watching this, found it hilarious. For the rest of the day, he teased her. You should have seen your face, he teased. After the family visited the elephants, they went to the gift shop. Jack ran round excitedly, but Sarah slumped and looked at the ground. Mum turned to Dad. Maybe we should buy Sarah a teddy bear, said Mum. So all I will do is read that to you because you're going to use the clues in that text to try to answer those 8 questions on the sheet. I will be on Google Meet if you'd like to ask me any questions or check any of your work. Thank you for listening, Year 3.